Who are the Monolith? A better question might be to ask, what is the Monolith? A zealous cult formed from brainwashed stalkers, the Monolith is a faction shrouded in mystery, isolated from the rest of the zone's inhabitants. Hostile to everyone but their own, the Monolith worship the Wishgranter, as to them, it is a monolithic crystal, an alien god. They're willing to sacrifice everything to protect their secrets. The Monolith were first formed when a group of stalkers, fascinated by the zone, decided to venture through the barrier in 2011, just before the events of Clear Sky. The second emission followed shortly after. They ended up being the first group to head right into the Brainscorcher. There was nothing for months until later in 2011, hostile groups from the center of the zone began attacking the barrier. This saw the beginning of a Monolith, being brainwashed and chosen by the common consciousness as a stronger means to protect the center of the zone from inquisitive stalkers. Mutants and zombified stalkers obviously were not strong enough of a defense, considering experienced stalkers like Sherlock's groups could navigate around the Brainscorcher. This evidently suggests that there's a different process to make Monolith and zombified stalkers. The psychic effects from X-16, psi emissions, and controllers appear to differ from the Brainscorcher. It's obvious that the Brainscorcher, being a specifically designed mind control device coupled with the sea consciousness's intentions, changes stalkers differently compared to the others. Although there are zombies in Monolith suits, suggesting that over time, their mind can and will degrade. Although losing their personality, emotions, and their speech partially degrading, almost like they've been lobotomized, the Monolith still are capable of deep strategy and maintain complete control of their motor functions, unlike zombies. I believe this is that given the Brainscorcher delivers a unique type of telekinetic interference, it's designed to only impair certain parts of an individual's mind, as it's obvious that brainwashing a regular person into being a fanatical warrior is of much more use than turning them into a zombie with the IQ of a caveman. With the Monolith only recently emerging in Clear Sky, they can only be found alive in army warehouses which they constantly attack from the barrier, Lemansk Hospital, and the CNPP. In Shadow of Chernobyl, they're perhaps the most powerful faction considering the large raids they constantly conduct, and the massive amount of numbers they bolster which you have to fight through as you enter their territory. They've expanded to Red Forest and are defending their territory of the Brainscorcher, Pripyat, and the sarcophagus under the CNPP. 3 months after the disabling of the Brainscorcher and events of Shadow of Chernobyl, the Monolith is losing its power in Call of Pripyat. Much of the Monolith's forces have been destroyed, and some have even broken free from the brainwashing, namely Strider and his group in Yanov being an example of this. You first encounter Monolith in the Pripyat underground after you establish your squad to venture forth. You then proceed to fight them further throughout Pripyat, aiding the stranded military detachment in the laundromat. Given that the sea consciousness has been destroyed and the Brainscorcher is disabled, these are the remnants of a Monolith trying to hold out against the military's incursion. The Monolith doesn't have many particular leaders, considering they're under psychic influence from the sea consciousness, which is now destroyed after the events of Shadow of Chernobyl. They communicate with the sea consciousness by entering a type of trance, where they are oblivious to anything around them. They often do this next to some sort of antenna statue, which potentially improves the reception they receive, or could just be symbolic. The Monolith has only one named leader, Charon, who fight in the Palace of Culture which acts as a Monolith base in Shadow of Chernobyl. There's not much else to say as he's obviously hostile, and you can completely avoid him if you so choose to. One potential interesting thing is in Greek mythology, Charon is Hades' ferryman, who conveys the souls of the dead. You can interpret this that as stalkers pass over to the Monolith, Charon would be the one to guide and instruct them. Then there is the Monolith Master, who has a randomly generated name in-game. He's found in the river port in Pripyat, where you can find him in the trance-like prayer, where you can easily dispatch him. A Monolith Master can also be found in the finale mission Evacuation for Call of Pripyat. I'm not sure if the Master in the river port and the Master in the final mission are both the same, or meant to be different. Either way, they're of interest because the PDA which the first one drops shows that Monolith is capable of higher reasoning, as he states that he's planned for caches of ammo to be placed around Pripyat for when Monolith fighters require them. The most interesting part of the Monolith's leadership in Call of Pripyat is the Preachers. Continuing with the religious undertones, Preachers are experts and leaders of the remaining Monolith. They preach to their followers from rooftops and provide them sniper support with their Gauss rifles during firefights. You must lure one out as a part of one of the quests in Pripyat to obtain his Gauss rifle. Failing to do so will mean you won't be able to obtain one for the rest of the game, given how they're always located on inaccessible rooftops.
Of the Monolith, avenge your fallen brothers, rest as they are in their eternal union with the Monolith. Bring death to those who spurn the holy power of the Monolith.
Враги! Провожу ликвидацию!
During the events of Call of Pripyat, it's hard to tell what the internal state of their faction is like. With the sea consciousness gone, the Monolith in their trances must not be contacting anyone at all. Or given that the brainwashing is still intact for many, they may think they're still in contact with the Wishgranter. Given that some of the Monolith members have been brainwashed from at least 3 months to a maximum of 9 months, it's reasonable to believe that the brainwashing and mental invasion from the Brainscorcher has at least some long-lasting or permanent effects. One question I have is, how does one break the brainwashing of a Brainscorcher? Even with it being deactivated, its side effects are still present. I believe that the preachers keep the remaining Monolith in check, even with the sea consciousness's influence being gone. The Monolith's fanaticism and faith behind the Wishgranter is what keeps them deluded and in this mental state. I also suspect that their proximity to the middle of the zone and each other is what also keeps them indoctrinated. Strider and his group are the only Monolith we know of to break the mind control. All he remembers is first venturing to the CNPP to find the Wishgranter, and then ending up in Yanov with no recollection of in between. Therefore, I believe that their distance from Pripyat and the rest of the Monolith is what had them manage to break free from the mind control. With no preachers to solidify their faith, and them being further away from those aerialite altars, the CNPP, and sarcophagus in general, I feel like the zone's power is too sporadic to maintain the psychic control over a stalker past the area of Pripyat. It's possible that Strider's group either wandered past the vicinity or was on a scouting mission and eventually they were too far and regained their minds. I think this is what happened, given you don't find any other Monolith until entering the Jupiter underground leading to Pripyat. They either learnt not to, as they had never heard from Strider again, or they have some sort of instinct or part of the brainwashing that tells them not to. Or it could just be that although they're brainwashed, they're not dull in terms of tactics and strategy, as they're at their weakest point in Call of Pripyat, and they wouldn't achieve much venturing out of Pripyat. Why would they? The Monolith are crazy zealots defending the secrets of a Wishgranter, also referred to as the Great Crystal by them. They were a great threat to the other Stalkers inhabiting the zone early on, until many Stalkers united and staged a counterattack after the Brainscorcher was disabled, crushing much of the Monolith's power and restricting their territory. After the destruction of the sea consciousness, Monolith was without guidance. Stagnating in numbers from no more brainwashed recruits, they receded into just the city of Pripyat, isolating themselves until Operation Fairway. This was right before the beginning of Call of Pripyat, when many military operatives found themselves stranded and in constant conflict with the Monolith. I feel that after the events of Call of Pripyat, it's very likely that the Monolith is essentially destroyed, given they give all they have in the final mission, and they still do not succeed in stopping the military evacuation. I feel this is even more evident given that after the military evacuate, the laundromat becomes populated by Yar, Gary, and a group of loners using it as an outpost to further explore Pripyat. With the road to Pripyat being cleared by S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Stalkers now have a reliable route back and forth to Pripyat, meaning whatever remains of a Monolith will surely either be killed by new explorers, run out of supplies and flee or die, or hopefully more will break their brainwashing. The Monolith makes for an interesting faction and is an essential part of Stalker lore, for fanatical enemies who you cannot reason with at all. They're the endgame antagonists in all 3 games, and for good reason. Being compromised of many battle-hardened Stalkers with some of the best weaponry in the game, they're as dangerous to you and fellow Stalkers as they are zealous. What topic would you like me to cover in my next Stalker lore video? I'm keen to keep on going with your support. If you're new, I suggest subscribing to the channel to keep up to date with new videos. I'm Al, and as always, thanks for watching.